Hey there, pilots! Welcome back to the battlefield. Today we're suiting up and heading straight into the world of Mobil suit Gundam UC Engage. If you've been keeping up with the game, you already know just how stacked the roster has become. New mobile suits are dropping left and right, older ones are getting buffs or tweaks, and let's be honest, trying to figure out which units are worth investing your precious resources into can feel like navigating a battlefield blindfolded. But don't worry, that's where this tier list comes in. In this video, we're ranking the top performing mobile suits in the current meta, from beam saber brawlers to long-range beam snipers. Whether you're looking to dominate PvE missions or climb the ranks in PvP, knowing which suits are dishing out the most damage or tanking like legends is key. Some of these picks might surprise you, and a few fan favorites might not be as strong as you remember. So let's break it all down and see which mobile suits truly stand tall in UC Engage right now. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking mobile suits in Mobile Suit Gundam UC Engage. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Gundam Full Armor Unicorn Gundam, ZZ Gundam, She Gundam, and Dagdoll. Alright, let's rip the band-aid off. We've hit the C tier. This is where dreams go to retire and mobile suits just try their best. First up, we have the Gundam Full Armor. Now don't get me wrong, this unit isn't bad per se. In fact, for fragment quests, it's basically the king of the playground. Think of it like your high school gym teacher. Sturdy, reliable, but definitely not winning the Olympics. It leans heavily on its defense buffs, coming from both its EX skill and Transcendent skill, which makes it a decent tank. But once you throw it into the chaos of the current meta filled with hyper-aggressive DPS monsters, its armor starts to feel more like cardboard. Great for beginners, but it's not going to carry you to the championship. Then we've got the Full Armor Unicorn Gundam. Once upon a time, this was a beast in the arena, like a legendary knight riding into battle. But these days, more like that same knight forgot his sword at home. It just doesn't deal the kind of damage you need to dominate anymore. Its defensive power, which once held strong, now crumbles under the pressure of today's top-tier arena picks. Nostalgic? Yes. Meta-breaking? Absolutely not. Moving on to the ZZ Gundam. Now this one's a bit of a drama queen. Hits like a truck, sure, but also goes down faster than you can say X-Gauge. It's the textbook definition of a glass cannon, and like every glass cannon, it begs for investment and backup dancers. I mean, support units. In PvE, it still flexes some power, but in Arena, the lack of EX gauge generation hurts it big time. When EX skills are the name of the game, you can't afford to be the guy who shows up late to the party. Speaking of late arrivals, let's talk about the She Gundam. It's armored, it's accurate, it wants to be a bruiser. And it would be if it weren't for two major headaches: Guion and Zeong. The Guion is an arena favorite that hoovers up enemy aggro like a magnet, and that usually spells disaster for poor She. And Zeong? That thing just deletes the She Gundam like it's clearing spam emails. Still, if you're just getting started or your bench is looking thin, the She can definitely hold the line in PvE content. Just maybe don't get too attached. And oh boy, now we get to the Dagdoll. I have to admit, this one's kind of fun. Deals a good amount of damage, jams the target it's hitting, jams all raid units at the start of battle, and heals for 55% of the damage it deals. Sounds like a party, right? But sadly, it's the kind of party where no one else shows up. The problem is its damage output just doesn't keep up with today's top-tier generic units. And while jamming sounds useful, in PvP it's kind of like flipping a coin. You never know if it'll actually help or just be fancy background noise. Let's be real though, all of these suits had their moment. There was a time when you could field Full Armor Unicorn Gundam and feel powerful. There was a time when ZZ Gundam's insane burst made it a threat in every match. But now, the game has moved on, and these units are like VHS tapes in a Netflix world. That said, they're not useless. If you're a new player, or your team is still in that awkward middle school phase, these mobile suits can help fill in the gaps. They're not flashy, but they do the job. Kind of like a reliable old car that gets you to work, even if it squeaks a little. And hey, in PvE, most of these suits still got some fight in them, especially Gundam Full Armor and She Gundam. They're like the uncles who still hit the gym and bench a decent amount, even if their arena days are behind them. Respectable. Not top tier, but respectable. Just don't expect miracles in Elite Arena. Up there, it's survival of the fastest EX skill, and most of these suits just aren't built for that kind of pressure. They're more about endurance than raw power, and unfortunately, endurance doesn't always win you medals in today's lightning-fast matches. Still, give them some love if they're in your hangar. You might be surprised by what they can do with the right team setup, or at the very least, they'll give you enough time to farm better units, which, let's face it, is sometimes the real endgame. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Hyaku Shiki Zaku Wine with Big Gun, Gundam GP02A, Banshee Norn, Zeta Gundam, Sisquide Titan's Color, Gundam GP04, Kubele, Titania, Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility, Penelope, V2 Gundam, Banshee Norn, Unicorn Gundam, and Victory 2, Buster Gundam. Alright, buckle up because we're diving into the B-tier units of Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn Engage, the unsung heroes that might not be top dogs but definitely deserve some love and strategy. Think of them like that reliable friend who's maybe not the life of the party but always pulls through when you need them most. Let's get into it. First up, the Hyaku Shiki. This bad boy is basically the ultimate team player. It has this neat trick where it makes the entire enemy team unable to dodge attacks from your squad mates. Imagine your buddies throwing punches while the enemy just stands there like, wait, what? I can't even move? That's a game changer for combo setups, especially when you've got the right mobile suits lined up. In player versus player, this skill can be downright brutal, turning fearsome opponents into easy pickings. The downside? Outside of that, it's kinda basic. Then there's the Zaku with Big Gun, your classic long-range sniper. It's built for distance and precision, meaning it can deal damage consistently without getting too close for comfort. Perfect for those who like to hang back and execute enemies from afar while avoiding the frontline chaos. Now let's talk about the Gundam GP02A. This one's a real powerhouse with its atomic bazooka. It dishes out massive area of effect damage that can seriously whittle down enemy health bars. Sure, it can't dodge attacks for 20 seconds after firing, but hey, that's where your team steps in to mop up the mess. When transcended, this guy gets even nastier with damage buffs and a boost to max damage, plus a 25% increase in HP and a 25% reduction in damage taken. It's basically a walking fortress with a bazooka attached. If you're struggling against dodge-heavy tanks like the O or green-type units in general, the Banshee Norn is your friend. It's like a specialized hunter for those slippery foes, thriving in matchups where dodging is the name of the game. Just a heads up though, it's super matchup dependent. Great in some fights, less so in others. It can also go into Hyper Awaken mode with its EX skill, granting absolute evade status for 10 seconds, making it untouchable while dishing out massive damage. Pretty sweet. But if you're running a Guion, you'll have to pick sides because the Banshee needs to take damage to shine, and the Guion usually soaks that up instead. Speaking of damage dealers, the Zeta Gundam used to reign supreme as one of the highest damage per second units around. Its EX skill ignores enemy defense and hits extra hard if the target is under the unavoidable debuff. Pretty slick, right? Unfortunately, with the rise of newer DPS monsters, it's no longer the king of the hill, but still holds its ground decently. Let's not forget the Sisquide Titan's Color, a sniper with serious bite. This unit doesn't just poke from afar, it lays down area damage and debuffs that make it a versatile threat in both PvP and PvE. If you like a unit that mixes precision with crowd control, this one's for you. On the anti-evasion front, the Gundam GP04 shines. By itself, it's got a solid beam damage boost and hits hard with its EX skill. Pair it with pilots like Sima Garahao, who buff accuracy, and you've got a nearly flawless shot machine. It's a sneaky green-type assassin that's also a nightmare for evasion specialists like the O. The Kubele is a key player for those who want to stack debuffs alongside units like the Hama and Hyaku Shiki. This anti-evasion unit stuns enemies and dishes out decent damage while dodging attacks like a pro. It's like that annoying opponent who just won't stay down, keeps messing with your game plan. Now, the Titania is an evasive melee unit that loves to heal itself whenever it dodges. It even gets an absolute evade status if it gets hit, which is basically a shield that says, nope, you can't hurt me too much right now. While it's not the best buddy for the Guion, it can still hold its own and dominate the battlefield with some smart play. Alright, Continuing with the B-tier gems you don't want to sleep on, let's talk Penelope. This one's like the tank that wants to throw a big ol' shield up and say, "Not today, damage!" It used to be the go-to defensive wall, shrugging off big hits like it was nothing thanks to its high guard rate. But with crit-focused units running wild, Penelope's defenses aren't as impenetrable as before. Still, if you're facing teams that don't rely on critical hits, this mobile suit is a durable beast. Just watch out for combos involving Zeong, especially when EZ8 tags along. Those duos can really mess Penelope up. Moving on to the V2 Gundam, a blue generic mobile suit that's surprisingly solid. Its EX skill does double duty as an area of effect attack and a team-wide heal, which is pretty clutch in longer fights. Plus, its evasion and beam damage stats get better the longer the battle drags on, making it a nice, steady presence. It might not shine as bright as some higher-tier units, but for a dependable, versatile fighter, V2 Gundam holds its own. Now the Unicorn Gundam, or as some call it, White Unicorn. This guy packs a punch with its EX skill, dealing heavy damage and buffing other blue-type mobile suits. It can also get the Bullseye status during its Hyper-Awaken mode, improving its effectiveness even more. The downside? Being a Gundam type and protagonist unit means it takes extra damage from Char's Z-Gok and the Zeong, so it's not exactly a frontline tank. Mostly shines in PvE, but not a must-have in every PvP lineup. Last but definitely not least, the Victory 2 Buster Gundam. This guy is all about busting tanks with its Bombardment X skill that does area damage and hits armored units extra hard. It's got a massive damage cap increase on its third weapon, plus it ramps up beam damage and evasion buffs over time. Unfortunately, in Elite Arena, it struggles against the Phaz, the most feared tank out there. But if Phaz isn't in the picture, the Victory 2 Buster Gundam can easily slot in as a top-tier threat. So yeah, these B-tier mobile suits might not be your flashy highlight reel stars, but they're full of tricks and niche roles that can totally turn the tide if you know how to use them right. It's all about synergy and timing, folks. What's your go-to B-tier MVP? The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, S Gundam, Blue Destiny Unit 1, Gaplant, Johnny Ridden's Gelgoog Cannon, Zeta Gundam, Char's Z-Gok, Over.On, Gotterlayton, New Gundam Green, Sazabi, Bond Doc, Zanuck, Full Armor Unicorn Gundam NTD, Gundam plus G-Fighter, and Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility NTD. Alright, buckle up because we're diving deep into some of the absolute beasts in Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn Engage. If you thought the Zeong was untouchable, wait till you see who's holding their ground or even stealing some of the spotlight in this A-tier lineup. Spoiler alert, there's plenty of glass cannons and crit machines ready to melt your face off. First off, let's talk about the S Gundam. This guy's a crit machine, folks. Its EX skill dishes out massive damage and then cranks up its critical rate, so you're basically handing it the keys to a one-way ticket to Destruction City. It took a little nap after the crit system rework, but now it's back and showing it's got teeth. Still, don't get too cocky. It's a solid performer, but doesn't quite outshine the legendary Zeong or the Hyper Mega Launcher Zeta Gundam. Speaking of specialty units, the Blue Destiny Unit 1 is a total nightmare for new type mobile suits. This thing has a vendetta and zero chill when it comes to those new type machine category enemies. Pair it with Yu Kojima, and suddenly, your Blue Destiny is a melee wrecking ball. Faster X skill charge, better melee sense, and laser-like accuracy. You'll feel like you've got the perfect buddy for your close-range skirmishes. Now, if you love playing with fire, or, well, beams, the Gaplant is your guy. This fragile but deadly mobile suit targets the enemy with the lowest HP from the get-go with a beam rifle that says, "No second chances." It's especially nasty in Elite Arena, since it loves picking off the Zeong, who's often the squishiest unit out there despite being a powerhouse. Plus, its type advantage and damage cap boost against blue-type units make it a real pain for the meta's DPS kingpins. Then there's Johnny Ridden's Gelgoog Cannon. You might think, hey, bombardment units should have big explosions, right? Well, this one's got a sneaky twist. Its EX skill damage ignores enemy defense and stuns them. Perfect if you like setting up combos with teammates who can clean up the stunned mess. Johnny's best buddy? The EZ8, who pumps up its critical attack and critical rate. Talk about a dynamic duo. Speaking of bombardment, the Zeta Gundam Hyper Mega Launcher is a literal heavy hitter. Its EX skill can hit for up to 537% of its attack as single target damage, and it recharges half of its EX gauge on the spot. Translation, it's spamming those devastating attacks like there's no tomorrow. While Camille Bidan is the classic pilot, try swapping him for the moon version of Amuro or Kincaid now. Trust me, they bring out the best in this bad boy. If you like to mess with your opponent's target priorities, Char's Zgok is your sneaky little helper. It forces your allies to laser focus on Gundam-type enemies and boosts the damage dealt to them. Great if you're facing teams full of those iconic Gundams, but if the enemy lineup is mostly Zaku types or other weirdos, Char's strategy might flop harder than a clumsy rookie pilot. Moving on to something a little more aggressive but less tanky, the Overon is basically the O's wild sibling. It doesn't have the defensive perks to soak damage like the O, but it's an X skill spammer that restores EX gauge when hit. Pair it with the Gaian for maximum chaos. But without that buddy system, it's like a party without the music, not quite hitting the right notes. Now let's talk about snowballing damage. The Gatra Latin is your guy for that. This X skill spamming monster can climb to the top of the damage charts if you've got it at potential level 5. It's a bit behind the Sazabi and Zeong in raw power, but man, when it gets going, it's tough to stop. Just make sure you've got it maxed out, otherwise it's like bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. Healing and damage in one package? That's the new Gundam Green for you. Unlike its red sibling with the glacial healing time, Green's heal comes through quicker and packs a punch damage-wise. It can literally flip the tide in a pinch and give its buddies like the Gundam GP02A and Sazabi the breathing room to wreck shop. Its damage ramps up especially around the 20 to 30 second mark, so don't underestimate that timing. We also can't ignore the Sazabi, which is the more utility-focused brother of the yellow Sazabi. It sacrifices some survivability and lifesteal but gains crowd control and that nasty bullseye status effect that keeps enemies on edge. It's a solid pick if you want to mix damage with tactical control. And then, there's the all-rounder, the Bond Doc. This unit is like the Swiss Army knife of today's meta. It has big damage, evasion, durability, and even the unavoidable status effect, which is rare and precious. It's particularly good against the O, can survive area damage, and avoids extra damage from Zeong or Char's Zgok, because it's neither a protagonist nor a Gundam-type unit. Think of it as a less flashy but very reliable version of the awakened Magna Martel. Before we wrap up, let's touch on the Zanuck, a sniper who plays it cool. Not the flashiest, but its mid-range damage and accuracy mean it can consistently put shots on target without relying heavily on its EX skill. It's simple, effective, and can hold its own even without max potential or heavy buffs. Last but not least, we have the Full Armor Unicorn Gundam NTD. This guy is like a cousin of the Zeong. Big area of effect damage with high hit count weapons. The downside? It charges its EX gauge slower, so Zeong might get the jump on it. Plus, it cripples its own critical rate by 200%, which is a huge bummer if you're running an EZ8 team that relies on crits. If you don't have EZ8, it's still decent. Just try to get your attacks in early before the enemy Zeong can mess you up. And for the wild card, the Gundam Plus G-Fighter is a surprisingly versatile unit that buffs its movement speed, evasion, max health, and EX gauge recovery. Until it drops below half health, then it gets pretty vulnerable and loses access to its EX skill. Keep it protected, and it's a decent range threat. Fun fact, pilot it with Awakened Pesce Montagne in PvP for a quick range sense boost. Finally, the Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility NTD is that sneaky anti-psycho frame unit that jams enemies for the first 18 seconds, disables their healing, and boosts its own crit damage. While it's mostly PvE territory, it's surprisingly effective in Elite Arena against psycho frame heavy teams. If you love shutting down healers and dominating the battlefield, this is your ticket. So there you have it. The A-tier heavy hitters and specialists shaking up Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn Engage right now. Whether you're a crit-loving glass cannon fan or a sneaky control freak, this roster has something to keep your opponents sweating. Which one's your favorite? The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Sinanju Stein NT version, Messer Type F001, Rick Dom, Gedlav, ZZGR, and RX78F00 HMT Gundam High Mobility Type. Alright, so you thought crit reworks were just small tweaks? Nah, they straight up made the Sinanju Stein NT version a beast. This guy now gets juicy critical hit buffs through its EX skill, and those fancy transcendent skills, turning it into a real threat on the battlefield. What's fun is that it has this quirky skill where it chases after generic mobile suits first. Sometimes, that's exactly what you want. Other times, maybe not so much. Before, it kinda struggled to punch through those generic units early, but thanks to the crit buffs, it's finally got the bite to back up the bark. If you haven't tried it yet, you're missing out on a real game changer. Then there's the Messer type F001, and oh boy, this guy is like the party host who insists everyone looks at him first. It's an armored unit that self-inflicts provoke, which means all enemies have to attack it first for a solid 8 seconds. This is huge because it literally breaks any target priority you had planned, kinda stealing the spotlight from Char's famous Z-Gok, who did the same thing before. While it's not as tanky as some of the top meta armored units, it frees up your team to slot in a more aggressive damage dealer. So if you're tired of babysitting your guy on just to hold aggro, Messer's your new best friend. Speaking of holding aggro, Rick Dom is like Messer's less durable but equally stubborn cousin. It fills the exact same niche, drawing enemy fire and soaking up punishment. But you gotta be careful because it won't last as long in the fray. Think of it like the reliable sidekick who shows up ready to fight, but doesn't want to stick around for the encore. Now let's talk about the Gedlov, the absolute mad scientist of bombardment units. This guy has a wild gimmick. When it's at or above 90% health, it takes 99% less damage, deals 96% more ranged damage, and moves 99% faster. Sounds ridiculous, right? But here's the catch. You can't charge its EX skill while it's buffed. If its health drops below 90%, it loses all those buffs, but can then use its EX skill to heal back 45% of its max health, potentially snapping right back into that OP state. In player versus player battles, Gedlov's tankiness combined with its damage output makes it a nightmare to deal with. Next up is the ZZGR, an armored unit with a sassy attitude. It reflects a third of the beam damage it receives right back at the attacker. It's got some nice defensive tricks, like healing 45% of its max health whenever it pops its EX skill. But don't get too comfortable thinking it's invincible. While it dishes out some serious reflection damage, it can't stay on the battlefield forever if focused down. Still, it's the kind of unit that makes your enemies think twice before firing beam weapons at you. And how could we forget the RX-78 F-00 high mobility type Gundam? This guy is basically the high-octane, turbocharged version of the classic Gundam. With built-in critical hit capabilities, it's a high damage per second DPS monster. Imagine it like the EZ-8 Gundam but on steroids, with all the bombardment firepower and critical punch to rival Johnny Ridden's Gelgoog cannon, especially when the EZ-8 is amped up. If you want raw DPS with crit flavor, this is your go-to mobile suit. What ties all these suits together? Their unique roles and quirks that shake up the battlefield meta. Sinanju Stein, NT version is your crit specialist. Messer and Rick Dom are your reliable taunt tanks. Gedlov brings that crazy burst and survive mechanic. ZZGR reflects damage like a SAS master. And RX-78 F-00 high mobility type Gundam just slaps enemies silly with pure firepower. Honestly, it's like building a party for a dungeon run. Each unit has its own job and personality. And when you mix these S-tier mobile suits, you get a team that's hard to break and a joy to play. Plus, watching opponents scramble when your Messer forces them to attack it first? Priceless. So, if you're aiming to dominate Mobile Suit Gundam UC Engage, these S-tier picks are not just safe bets, they're the rock stars. Get them in your lineup and watch how the battlefield bends to your will. And hey, if you ever want to chat about how to maximize their potential or what crazy combos you're running, hit me up anytime. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Jian, Zeong, Gundam EZ-8, The O, Sazabi, Full Armor ZZ Gundam, Magna Martell Awaken, Toadsritter, Victory 2 Assault Gundam, and New Gundam Double Fin Funnels. Alright, buckle up because we're diving deep into some of the absolute monsters of Mobile Suit Gundam UC Engage's arena, the S+ tier. If you think you've seen power before, wait until you meet these heavy hitters who are basically the final bosses of your PvP nightmares. Let's get into why these mobile suits are the real deal. First up, we have the Gaian. This guy isn't just your average mobile suit, It's the ultimate bodyguard for your high damage dealers. For the first 15 seconds of combat, it forces enemies to attack armored units like itself, giving your squishy damage per second units all the breathing room they need to wreak havoc. Plus, its EX skill hits like a truck, especially when you roll with Zeon Force's affiliated allies, meaning early game damage spikes that can absolutely decide the match. Now, speaking of meta-defining powerhouses, the Zeong is nothing short of a legend. This bombardment mobile suit dishes out massive area of effect damage with its EX skill and has a crazy high hit count coupled with beam-enhanced weaponry. If you keep this giant alive long enough, especially maxed out with transcendent and potential levels, it can single-handedly steamroll entire teams, even those with higher combat power. It's like having your very own tank and artillery rolled into one. The Gundam EZ8 shot up the rankings thanks to the crit rework, and it's not hard to see why. This mobile suit buffs your entire team's critical hit rate and critical attack damage, which basically turns your whole squad into crit monsters. Bombardment types especially love EZ8, as those buffs drastically amplify their damage output. If you want your team's attacks to hit like lightning bolts, EZ8 is the guy you call. Next, let's talk about the O. This armored beast isn't just tanky, it's slippery too. It's got high evasion and heals itself with every successful dodge while charging its EX gauge. This means it can spam a powerful single-target EX attack while staying healthy, as long as the enemy isn't running bullseye, unavoidable attacks, or crazy high accuracy. Oh, and here's a fun fact. The O is one of the few mobile suits that actually counters the Zeong, making it a perfect buddy for the Gion. Sazabi is probably the most self-sustaining generic unit you'll find in the game right now, with multiple beam damage self-buffs, a bullseye buff to make sure it rarely misses, and a whopping 200,000 max damage cap increase. It's a damage machine. On top of that, it can steal up to 66% of its life back when dealing damage. Just don't expect it to heal through everything once it gets overwhelmed. It's tough but not invincible. Full Armor ZZ Gundam, or FAZ, is a tank in every sense. Not only is it immune to EX skill damage, but it also boosts the damage of all blue-type allies with its EX skill, making it an excellent team player. Its guard rate is high enough to soak hits, though it's not quite as durable as Penelope. Still, it's arguably the tankiest armored unit in the entire game right now, perfect for drawing fire and protecting your glass cannons. Magna Martel Awakened form? Oh boy. This one is the Swiss Army knife of mobile suits. Once it dips below half health, it becomes an absolute nightmare with an almost permanent absolute evade buff, doubled accuracy, restored HP and EX gauge, and a near 100% boost in beam damage. It tanks, it debuffs enemies for huge damage amplification, and it punishes evaders like no other. If you want a mobile suit that does everything, and then some, Magna Martel is your pick. Todesritter specializes in destroying new type machines with a crit-based build that makes those already tough enemies look like paper. It hits new types twice with its EX skill, and with the EZ8 support, it can reach a staggering 100% crit rate. Plus, its high accuracy means it quickly dispatches tanks like the O and cuts through FAZ's guard rate. If you see a Todesritter on the field, you better have a plan. The Victory 2, Assault Gundam, is a bit of a hidden gem that's really come into its own. Thanks to perfect guard mechanics, strong single-target healing, team-wide EX damage resistance, and buffs that ramp up evasion and beam damage, it's already one of the best mobile suits. As newer, more durable armored units enter the arena, the Victory 2 Assault Gundam's value as a healer and support will only go up. Last but not least, the new Gundam Double Fin Funnels is like a tactical genius. It can dish out solid damage, start battles with absolute evade for the first 18 seconds, and grant itself the assault status that boosts offensive power. However, it's not a crit machine. It actually lowers its critical hit rate by 200%, which means it's all about utility and consistent damage rather than flashy crits. It struggles a bit against units that have both perfect guard and high guard rates, but those are still rare in the meta. So, yeah, these S+ tier mobile suits are what you want on your team if you're serious about dominating the arena. Each one brings something unique, whether it's raw damage, insane survivability, or utility that shifts the whole match in your favor. Pick your favorites, learn their strengths, and watch your win rate soar. Now go out there and wreck some faces. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.